Hey everyone, welcome to the Next Via AI podcast. Today we're joined by Hannah McKenney, the really bioengineer, I would say, turned entrepreneur that started Starling Medical. I mean, we were talking before we went live, and it's so intriguing to me the Hannah how you went from like designing prosthetic hands and really the surgical innovation space. I think at MD Anderson, right? And then leading Starling Medical to build a new medical device, Urindex. So definitely want to dive into that and learn more about that. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah. So let's go back a little bit. When you think back to when you started Starling Medical, what
hmm
was really happening at that time that made you feel like this was the move to make?
Yeah, I definitely did not really understand what being a founder was or what startups really were. When I co-founded Starling, it was right after my graduate studies at Rice University. Um,
Okay.
and the reason I kind of decided to do a master's in biomedical engineering was was an engineer. I really liked the healthcare space. I loved being able to talk to patients and work with surgeons and just kind of build something. And early on in my career, I kind of noticed, when you would shadow a physician, they would tell you about a problem and they were just so excited that you could do something.
Yeah.
So I really loved that feeling of like, okay, let me see if I can build something or we can engineer it. You're so busy taking care of patients. Let's, work together and try to improve that. So I went to grad school at Rice really to kind of just learn where you could plug in to this
Hmm.
space. And I had always wanted to work at one of the big medical device groups like
Yeah.
Medtronic and,
Hmm.
be an early R&D engineer there. And it wasn't really until we started just for a class pitching at these like MBA competitions. So we kind of had an idea, and my co-founder and I were, I guess, likable, and we would pitch and we kind of just like win some competitions, and we ended up graduating with like I don't know, $30,000, which at that time felt pretty substantial.
Yeah, of course.
So I went off to work at MD Anderson, working with surgeons, asking them what their problems were, seeing if we could kind of create something in the lab for them in a medical device capacity. But on the side, we kind of continued to work on this. So after MD Anderson, I would go at night and kind of work alongside my other friends and see what we could build. And we ended up getting an SBIR, so it's a small business grant from the NSF, which kind of was a key turning point for us. So we ended up
Hmm.
able to do like a clinical study at Stanford. We got some really good clinical data. And then about 3 years into it, we got into Y Combinator, which is a great accelerator out in Silicon Valley. Um, and that was really where it shifted from, okay, this is, a project that I'm learning how to, file a C Corp corporation or like what a cap table is or all these things to, okay, like this is actually something that I could quit my job and do full time. So ironically, I
Right.
was at that time working at Medtronic,
Oh,
my
okay.
my dream
You
job.
made it. Yep.
Yeah, it definitely was a really hard decision. And I had some really great mentorship there where I kind of sat down with my boss and was just kind of like, I don't know when I'll be able to be a founder again. And like, this is my dream job,
Hmm.
but I think I have to just go and do this and see what happens. And they were super supportive. And that was over 3 years ago now.
Okay. And
Yeah.
all of this work was specifically with your index, or was there
It
something else?
it was always with Starling, I'd say we used to be more of like a smart catheter. So it
Okay.
was that would like go into a patient's bladder for 30 days, and we had this like huge magnet that would like turn this pump inside, and you could void when you wanted to. And because it was indwelling for 30
Mm.
days, we were thinking, well, what could we kind of track passively because it's in contact with the bladder, it's in contact with the urine.
Right.
And the overwhelming thing that we heard from caregivers was, I don't know when my kid who's nonverbal has an infection and
Hmm.
they're resistant to like 4 antibiotics at this point and they're only 6. So we were like, okay, well, let's put in some sensors in there and we could track kind of their
Mm.
progression.
That's
Um,
cool.
Yeah, that grant that we got, we actually plucked those sensors out, put them on a benchtop, so that the Stanford lab that we were working with could just like pipette urine in, and we could say, "Hey, investors, we can let you know it is a UTI versus it's not." And the second our focus groups found out about that, they were like, "Send me one so I can do it with like my
Yeah.
kids' urine." And we were like, "Okay, well, let's make it a little bit easier for you. Let's make it stick in the toilet." And that was right when we got into Y Combinator. So we got a lot of like user feedback for this at home, like not not implantable, non-implantable, non-invasive device. And of course, our investors were like, "Oh, your regulatory path is going to go from like 7 years to a year."
Right. I guess we should probably explain to people exactly
Mhm.
what this device is.
Yeah.
Even kind of where the vision came from or the solution. I mean, you seem very solution oriented. You obviously saw an issue, a problem that needed to be addressed. Like, give us a little bit of picture of how that all came together.
Yeah, so we had been studying UTIs, urinary tract infections, for a couple years when we kind of like focused in on this toilet indwelling medical device. So the core of our technology, we use essentially like UV vis or near IR spectroscopy. So we're using optics, and we're just essentially scanning your urine every time you go to the bathroom. So we have this like small
Mm,
device that's in the front of your toilet bowl. You pee as you do, and we capture like 3 milliliters of your urine that passes through our system, and we scan it for like 5 seconds, and we're able to analyze the absorption patterns for like specific urine characteristics that are related to chronic health conditions. So our first product, we're really looking at urine turbidity relating to bacteria midstream, uh,
hmm.
how that relates to your risk of urinary tract infections.
Does it predict like prior to symptoms or is it if someone's having symptoms it can
We have seen that we are essentially like reaching out to patients before they have symptoms. And we won't escalate them for further workup until they have symptoms. So we're following like the same guidelines as if
right,
they went to the urologist themselves. But we are seeing about like 92% of the clinical calls that we do have, where it's like our nurses see something strange, they reach out. It's a conversation of, do you have symptoms? No. And then it's like, okay, well, what's your hydration status? What's your voiding schedule? What's your hygiene? All these things that they know they need to kind of keep tabs on, but they've never had that real-time feedback.
right.
So we are finding that, over 90% of the calls that we do, it's pre-symptoms. And that's when it's all this like
Hmm.
preventative care of do these things, give me a sample in a couple hours, let's see where you're at. And 90% of the time, their high risk score goes back down to being, in their range, and they never report symptoms or get an infection.
So it sounds like it really functions similarly to how other remote patient monitoring devices function. I mean, there's data that's collected that gets sent over to a health professional that evaluates it and then, if needed, gets back in touch with the patient.
Yeah, essentially, we do fit really nicely into those codes. And really, it's about, value-based care at the end of the day. I'd say, too, our patient population is unique in the sense of their symptoms are really uncomfortable. So they are really proactive versus like other RPM platforms, I think struggle for like one, compliance, and two,
Hmm. Yeah,
like the patient taking ownership of their symptoms. Like if you have a blood pressure cuff, you don't really notice if your blood pressure
right.
is rising or, your scale or things like that. But for us, I mean, they are just constantly like looking at the color,
Yeah,
if it smells different. Like I had a patient that they would take a dipstick every day and they were always positive because they were just had higher bacteria. They're called
right,
colonies, but it doesn't mean they have an infection. And they would line them up and take photos and try to see if there was an increase in the color to like deem if they actually had a UTI or not. So that's essentially like what we're doing automated through our algorithms is, we get sometimes like 8 samples per day for patients, and we're
oh, oh,
able to
okay,
optimize it to their baseline. And then we let them know, like, hey, for you, you are increasing at a rate that is concerning. Or like, hey, you're kind of at a good level. Clinically, if you took a dipstick, yes, they would say, you are positive, but we know that this is your like normal rate. So we're not gonna, order you antibiotics. We're not gonna push you for further workup unless you have symptoms.
yeah. And so the and we were talking about this a little bit before. So really the goal though is for physicians to
Hmm.
identify if the patient has a need and essentially prescribe the device for them.
Yeah, so UTIs are, or UTI patients, recurrent UTI patients, are a pretty neglected patient population. There isn't really a good system for them to receive care, and providers struggle to really provide care to all of them. So they're constantly getting calls of, them trying to get into the office. They don't really have a lot of patient history for them. So all they can really do is order a UA and get them on antibiotics. So
Hmm.
for us, we're really trying to say, we'll take over the triaging, we'll get to learn these patients, we'll give them the tools that they need to try and prevent their next UTI. And the ones that do need your care, we will let you know. And it should be a reduced workflow. And you can, go focus on your really complex patients. So it is pretty hands off from the provider when they prescribe them to it. Um, but they do see them obviously if they have a UTI or not. But we are kind of that extension of that practice.
Right. So you're fairly new into the entrepreneurial world.
Hmm.
I'm curious, is it harder than you thought it would be? Because you're in a probably category that's even a little harder than average because of the regulation.
Hmm.
What's your experience been?
Yeah, I mean, it is difficult. When I talk to, people that want to do startups or are thinking about it, I think my advice is always like, always be willing to learn. That was one of the things when I became CEO. I was always a product person and having to learn how to talk to investors, how to pitch, how to kind of read situations. I always came at it from, well, I'm not sure, but I have a lot of really smart people around me. Let me ask all these
Yeah.
people and then I'll make my decision. So I think it's really important that you don't get stuck on your opinion and try to force it. And you're always coming
Yeah.
from it of, let me ask the smartest people that I know. I love working with people that are smarter than me and
It's very helpful.
my mind. Uh,
Yeah.
and I'd say, I mean, things will obviously change. And if you come at it with an attitude of these are failures or, um, trying to fight it, it's going to be really exhausting.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but if you come at it from this is a really cool opportunity and, we're learning more and we're getting closer to what people actually want and we're building something people want, it's extremely rewarding. So trying to keep that attitude and, there's a lot of great stories that come out of it too. So.
Yeah. Mindset is everything. But the truth is, you've actually had quite a few great wins. I mean, you've had some prestigious
Mhm.
startup awards. I think featured in TechCrunch, I believe. I mean, but
Yeah.
would you say are there any parts of the business, like thinking of it from a business perspective, that you'd want to improve or change if you could?
I think just always staying a bridge on meeting the leaders in this space is something that you just constantly have to do, whether it's going to conferences or trying to keep up for our world. It's, the payers, the
Hmm.
other startups in the space, like just remaining plugged in. I think that's why accelerators are so great. We're currently in MedTech Innovator. We did AARP before. And really, one of my favorite parts is just meeting other startups and learning, hey, what are you guys doing? Who
Yeah.
are like the leaders that you guys have been speaking with? What are the trends that you guys are seeing? How could we work together? I'd say that's kind of the part that I'm always trying to improve. It's also hard to measure, right? You can always do
Yeah.
more. Uh, so yeah, I'd say that's definitely the main part of being a CEO is just staying a bridge on where you guys need to be heading and staying one
Yeah.
step ahead.
And yeah, I think one of the challenges can be sometimes it's just a lot of like repetitive, tedious tasks or tasks that, somebody that is kind of more vision oriented it just might not appeal to them. Do you feel like there are parts of your process or your business that take more time or energy than you'd like? Think,
I'd say I actually kind of made a recent change which helped us a lot, but I really think like having a good team around you and trusting that things are working, coming from
mm-hmm.
the product background, I feel like I was holding on to product a lot because one, I was interested
Yeah.
in it, and two, the product was kind of my baby. and I had to
Yeah, of
someone
course.
else's baby. But yeah, I feel a lot calmer and more confident that like our product team knows what's going on. Obviously, I'll check in, but as far as like the day-to-day decisions, I'm able to really get out of that space,
Hmm.
focus more on like, okay, what are the partnerships that we're going to do? Who are the customers? You said tedious work. I mean, I think it's like for every 10 conversations you have, maybe one will be helpful, you know? So
Right.
you really have to
Yeah.
work that ratio, and it can be time consuming for sure.
And you mentioned customers. So are those physicians? Like, who are the people that you would have conversations with that would actually help you move your business forward?
Yeah, definitely. On the physician front, we're really looking at large urology practices. So the way that they've formed in the US is there's really large ones called LUGPA, LUGPA.
Hmm.
And they can vary from like 20 to 80 providers. So those are
Hmm.
really great groups for us to work with. One, because of patient volume, but also their incentives are aligned in the sense of they have a lot of UTI patients. They, can't serve all of them. And we're basically saying like all of these patients that you guys don't have time for, we're going to work with them. It's no cost to you because, you can get reimbursed through these specific codes. And we're essentially just going to be like the UTI hotline for your
Right.
practice. Um,
Okay.
I'd say too, we're really focused on perfecting our product and algorithms and looking at our next clinical indications, whether that's like CKD or bladder cancer or other ones. Um,
Hmm.
so we're actually now also working with chronic care management or remote patient monitoring platforms, where they do all the like
Yeah.
clinical staffing, EHR integration, all of the like logistics and more software side of the product where staffing, clinical, like monitoring, like the time, billing support. So that's kind of another more partner than customer that we've been speaking
Right.
with. And we're also trying to work with some payers. It's a little bit longer of a lead time because we're showing, the
Yeah.
evidence, but the idea is, if we're preventing hospitalizations or urosepsis because of UTIs, which is quite a big cost to them at this point, why not, make it available for everyone on Blue Cross, this program.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the next milestone that we're looking at.
I mean, is there anything keeping an RPM and a remote patient monitoring company now from incorporating your index into their offering, into their devices that they use?
No, not really. What's nice too is urology has never done RPM
Yeah.
because
Right.
there's no device really. So that's kind of what we're
Hmm.
working on right now is, integrating our device and algorithm into their platform. Um, so really it's just bandwidth, I think, and right, finding the right partners. But we found a couple of really great ones that we're really excited about to launch, hopefully later this year, early next year.
Nice. Yeah. So 6 to 12 months down the road,
Mm.
things, you get that magic wand out. Like, what would you love to see happen for Starling 6 to 12 months from now?
So we would be raising our Series A next year, which means, we're looking to launch with about 2,000 patients. And that would really
Okay.
be the inflection point to go to those like tens of thousands of patients. Um, so that's a key milestone of just really trying to grow with the partners that we're going to start launching with later this year. I'd also say really deepening those value-based contract relationships with payers and kind of showing them like, hey, from these programs that we've been running with urology groups, look at how much we're reducing the rate of UTIs. Look how much we're reducing the calls to them. Um, and trying to make build that case for us of instead of this fee for service, is there a value-based service here that we can
Right.
start developing? I'd say too, I mean, we're looking at other urine characteristics and analytes that we can start developing algorithms for. Um, so starting to, to again work with the FDA on our next indications at that point as well.
So, I mean, someone hears you, they're interested in your device now. Like, how would they even get it? Like, how do they have to go to
Yeah.
their doctor or what do they do?
Yeah, and this was a question. We were at CES this January and we got this question a ton, right? Whether it's for
Yeah,
yourself or someone's like, hey, my mom got a UTI, she got like acute delirium, it was terrifying. I want to make sure this never happens again.
right.
So because of a lot of that interest, traditionally it was, let me speak to your physician, let's see if we can start this program, it needs to be prescribed. We're actually going to launch later this year a direct to consumer product that's more on that wellness side. Really, it's more focused on, hydration status, which could help your
hmm
risk of
Yeah.
urinary tract infections. And that would be an out of pocket, let's do this program, whether it's like a 6 month or a year or however long you want it. And it would be available for everyone. There's also a pretty big senior living population, and that's kind of why we also went that route of fee for service from an RPM perspective is pretty difficult in that senior space, and just launching a product that you can buy right off of our website. We're excited to hopefully launch that later this year as well.
Well, I will say personally, I was
Mm.
particularly intrigued about that because of my primary care startup. We have a big initiative where we are setting up our providers in assisted living facilities,
Okay.
and I could absolutely see
Yeah.
a need. I can see that there will probably be some challenges, but
Mhm.
I can absolutely see a need. So we'll have to stay in touch about that to see
Yeah.
where it goes. Yeah, that would be a really valuable thing to bring into the space for sure.
Yeah, I mentioned AARP. They are actually an investor of ours as well, and that was really some interesting insights that we learned. I had no idea that UTIs were actually a leading cause of hip fractures. Um,
Yeah,
as you get
interesting.
older, your symptoms, instead of like burning or urgency, can turn more into delirium. So I don't know if you've seen
Yeah,
Succession.
yeah,
There you go,
yeah.
where he
hmm
starts acting kind of weird,
Yeah, for sure.
and you just get kind of disoriented and fall over.
hmm
Or it's also another reason for people moving from independent living to senior care. They
hmm
keep getting UTIs. Their loved ones can't keep taking them to the emergency room. They're worried about them just staying at home. So if there was this device that we actually have a caregiver feature where you could check on, your dad or your mom
Oh
and,
yeah,
hey,
cool. Yeah, I like it. Yeah, I mean, because that's what obviously that's who's going to want to know, and it's getting that data from facilities can sometimes be challenging for
yeah,
family members.
yeah.
Yeah. What do you think is your biggest challenge right now? Like when you think about 612, like even like what do you think is your biggest like bottleneck in your process of growth?
For our stage, I mean, going from a seed to Series A, I think cash flow is just always that challenge, right? Of
hmm
we can only really put our foot on the gas after you've shown some success in your launch, which is getting harder and harder in VC culture right now. I think the benchmark
Yeah,
used to be that 1 million in ARR, and it's now more like 3 million in ARR.
right. Yeah, yeah.
Uh, so really just hitting that inflection point of, we're obviously a hardware company as well. There's a lot of stuff going around with tariffs, trying to just make sure that we're building in enough of a buffer that if something goes awry, whether it's our manufacturing timelines or our customers, a month delayed, that we're able to hit that and get the funding for our next inflection point of being more sustained and getting that better margin with those larger
hmm
volumes for sure.
Well, so you mentioned what would it take to get to that 3 million in annual recurring revenue? What
And
does that look like? We could talk
it,
1 million first, but I'm curious now when you say 3 million, what would that take?
it's between like 2,500 to 3,000 patients. Um,
Okay.
so not huge.
Yeah.
I mean, there's always, we're careful about hiring too quickly. So it's kind of like, okay, well,
Yeah.
what's our hiring strategy for our technical support team? There's suddenly going to be
hmm
1,000 devices out there. Are we going to be getting 1,000 calls? Like, how are we?
Right. Yeah.
Which is why working with these care management groups who are already supporting, hundreds of thousands of patients is such a great partnership for us, and we're really excited about it. They have the nurses to scale with them. They have the
hmm
equipment. We actually did a pilot of about 40 patients last year for 13 months, and just the enrollment and onboarding was such a challenge. We only had one person, but it was still like trying to optimize that is a whole other product. So that's really nice that we just really focus on getting the devices to the right people at the right time, making sure
Hmm.
that they're performing adequately and giving them, their real-time insights either through an API or our own
Yeah.
portal. So for the stage that we're at, that is a really big weight off of our shoulders for sure.
So when you're talking to physicians or you're talking to an RPM company, and they hear what the device is, what it provides, I mean, is it kind of a no-brainer at that point? Is the challenge actually having those conversations, or is it even after that?
It is pretty much a no-brainer. Especially for UTIs, it's such a preventable condition
Hmm.
if you do the right things at home. And the issue is there's just not really a good feedback cycle. I mean, everyone is now turning to
Right.
rules, right? Where it's like, oh, if you drink alcohol, yeah, you don't sleep as well. Everyone knows
Yeah.
that. Now that they have like a watch or a ring, they see it and they're
Yeah.
like, maybe I should actually watch,
Uh,
right? So it's the same mentality. Everyone knows, especially if you're at risk for UTIs, you need to drink water, you need to, practice proper hygiene, you need to void regularly. But it's kind of like, ah, how much does it really matter? So if every
right.
time you go to the bathroom, it's saying like, hey, I notice it's mattering.
Hmm.
Like you gotta step in
Yeah.
now. It's a really different psychological situation. Uh,
Yeah.
and then I'd say from the provider front, I haven't met a urologist or provider, honestly, that likes treating UTI patients. So we're happy to, take it over and be there for them, and let them focus on the patients that, are more complex or all of that. But um, there's a lot of interesting research going into kind of that cost-based analysis, which also makes it that no-brainer of UTIs
Hmm.
so preventable. Getting antibiotics and having a telehealth call is like $300 to $400 for the health system. But the
Right.
second that it goes into an ER visit, that bumps up to $3,000. And the second that that
Hmm.
goes to being hospitalized, that bumps up to $15,000. And, if it's urosepsis, I think at the American Urology Association conference last year, we heard it was 3 times more expensive for a urosepsis
Yeah.
patient than their oncology
Yeah.
patients.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's that's shocking.
I know.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so it's something that has very severe consequences in a patient population that's pretty neglected at this time.
Yeah. And obviously, one area of interest of mine is AI. I'm kind of curious. Well, one, I'd be curious if there's been any of that involved in the development of the product, but even before that, have you used any AI capabilities to try to connect? Because probably I would imagine connecting with the people that you need to connect with to get the word out is probably one of a significant challenge.
Yeah, we've gone, I mean, we kind of go through urologists and really that's where we're leveraging a lot of our partners. If they have
Hmm.
AI call centers where we get in with the urologist, they give us their patient list, and then it's us that has to enroll. Um,
Right.
there are definitely capabilities that they've been using from that
Hmm.
perspective, for enrollment. From a like algorithm and data science perspective, right now we're really trying to detangulate or detangle, what features in urine are we tracking and how is that a risk for UTI? Um,
Hmm.
but because we're using spectroscopy, there is the idea of, well, maybe it's just your spectral fingerprint. And I don't actually know why you're going to get a UTI, but I can see for you, this is what
Right.
a UTI looks like for you. So
Interesting.
getting more into that machine learning from that perspective, because we can just track, it's not just a dipstick where, you track like 2 to 4 things and you're kind of like, well, this equation kind of causes that this could be something. It's not that helpful for chronic health conditions that are so
Right.
complicated. So the
Yeah.
more and more we train our device on, this is the end outcome that we're trying to track. What does that look like from your spectral fingerprint versus like your
Hmm. Yeah. You can definitely see that over time,
hmm
machine learning will certainly, play more of a role. It just
hmm
probably isn't there yet. Yeah. Interesting. So if people want to get in touch with you, learn more about your
Yeah.
your index, like what is the best way for them to find out more?
So we have our website. We have a contact form there. We check that all the time. So if you are interested in getting the product, working with us, learning more, that's probably the most direct way. Obviously, we're on LinkedIn, as well. But yeah, whether you're someone that wants the device, you want it for your loved one, you're a provider that's interested, you're able to get in touch with us there for sure. So www.starlingmedical.com is where you can find us.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. It's been intriguing to I, yeah, I love the device, but I definitely love hearing your story of how you went, like, not even entrepreneurial minded, but then you just like dove in.
Mhm.
And you're right. Essentially, that's what being an entrepreneur is all about. So I just love that you did it. How are you feeling about your journey overall?
I'm excited. I mean, like
Yeah.
I said, it's a pretty unique experience and like now things that feel pretty rudimentary, but like we'll speak to strategics about, this futuristic toilet or this space application. And I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
I never thought I'd be the one having these conversations, but also the one that is a decision maker in these conversations at such a young age, right?
Yeah.
So those are really exciting. And even just talking to investors where, we're raising millions of dollars, and I'm like, wow, $5 million doesn't take you that far.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and then having to earn 3 million, right? It's just
Yeah.
it's like you live in a lot bigger numbers than you ever thought you would,
Hmm.
when you're in that space. So
Hmm.
really cool stuff. Really cool stuff. I'm going to be watching you, and I'm
Yeah.
kind of curious. You're focused on your index now, but would you see yourself branching into to other areas?
With Starling, like
Yeah.
other, yeah,
Yeah.
I'd say so for Urindex, that's why spectroscopy is so interesting. And when I say we're looking at other clinical indications, it's really, if there's something that we want to look at, we just need to train our algorithm. So it could
Right.
be like you have a Urindex for chronic kidney condition. This is what
Hmm.
or your index tracks more of this thing, or so it could be this kind of personalized device to you based off of your risk factors. Um, so I could definitely see us kind of expanding to other clinical spaces with
Yeah.
your index, whether it's called your index or something different at that point.
Yeah. And you mentioned that you are already working with endocrinologists in the diabetes space.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
really, most diabetics are on glucose inhibitors, and the second that they put on,
Hmm.
their fluid intake and processing changes, and they're about 3 times more likely to have a UTI. So speaking with endocrinologists, a lot of the conversation is, once they get a UTI, it's a question of just taking them off that treatment. But if there was a program that could work with them for 6 months to a year of like, hey, this is how your body now responds,
Right.
you need to change your fluid intake. These are the things you need to look out for. Let's train them on how their body responses now so that they won't get that infection. They can stay on the proper treatment.
Well, it's a good thing you have a desire to learn and you're open and curious to learning because it sounds like you're learning more and more all the time. So, congratulations on all your success so far. And I mean, I know in many ways you feel like you're just getting started. So, I'll be watching and see where you go from here.
Great. Thanks,
All
Michael.
right. Thanks so much for joining me.